Hey guys, in this video we're going to take a look at a battery by a company called PowerUrus or PowerUrus, and it's got a couple of things that are different than batteries I have reviewed on this channel before. Let's find out if it's worth a look. Alright, so this PowerUrus or PowerUrus, let's just say PowerUrus, they are a subsidiary of a company called LiFePO4, which is fairly well known in the lithium iron phosphate battery space. And they sent this battery to me for a review, and I agreed to review this particular one because it is a little bit different than batteries that I have reviewed before, as I said in the intro. But before we go into all that, let's kind of go back in time and unbox this thing and see what you get in the box. All right, we got one little welcome guide right here. And there is the battery. It looks like its strap goes all the way around. All right, so it looks like that's about it. Just a little welcome guide and the battery itself. And of course the strap that I just removed. It's got, looks like epoxied in terminals here. And let's just take a look. These are obviously M8 bolts. These are the short ones. So they're only about 5/8 of an inch deep. So these are pretty short bolts. If you have to connect multiple ring terminals up to this, you might have to get longer M8 bolts than that. All right, let me go run this thing through the paces, find out what it's all about, how well it performs and all that stuff, and I will report back in just about 2 seconds. And we're back. So it's been about 4 weeks since I did the unboxing part that you just watched, and in that time I've done a variety of tests on this to see what it's all about, and let's kind of dive into that now. So before we get into the clips, let me give you some more information about this battery. So this is obviously a 100 amp hour 1280 watt hour lithium iron phosphate battery, and it is rated to maintain at least 80% of its original capacity after at least 3,500 full charge and discharge cycles. So it weighs about 27.5 pounds. It is about 13 inches in this direction here. It's about 6.8 inches in this direction, and it's about 8.5 inches tall. So I think whenever you're shopping for these, it's important to know what the actual dimensions are so you know if it'll fit in your space. Now this battery does have both high temp protection and low temp protection, which is nice because only a couple of the batteries that I've reviewed so far actually have low temp protection, and they tend to be much more expensive. Now the price on this one is right now about $400, which again is a little bit more expensive than the super budget batteries that I have tested. But as I said, those don't have low temp protection. But this one also has another trick up its sleeve. It actually has built-in Bluetooth connectivity, and it has an app that you can connect to the BMS and find out things like what its current state of charge is, what the current load on it is, how many amps are you drawing. Also things like this individual cell temperature and the individual cell voltage, so you can see if it's getting itself out of balance or not. And you can also find out if there are any protection warnings and all that stuff from the app. So we'll take a look at the app in a minute. But as I said, this is rated at a 1280 watt hour capacity. And I did do a DC discharge test, I actually did a couple of them, to see what kind of usable capacity we can get out of this battery. And I'll kind of run the clips of that here while I'm talking. So on the first test, I kind of did a standard discharge, and I got a total of 1,239 watt hours, so just under 1,240 watt hours. And then on this second test, kind of fully recharged it, let it rest for a little bit, and then ran the second discharge, and I got 1,247 watt hours. So just about 8 more watt hours than I got before. So it does seem like the BMS on this battery is reserving just a little bit of watt hour capacity, maybe something around 30 watt hours or so, to ensure that the Bluetooth connectivity has enough power to continue to function for a reasonable amount of time. Now the specs on this battery say that it is rated for 100 amps continuous discharge and up to 280 amps for up to about 5 seconds of discharge, but you can do it continuously at 100 amps. So I did do some testing on that. Let's go see how that testing went. All right, let's run this thing through a inverter test, find out how much we can actually draw from it. It does say discharge current is 100 amps. Now the cool thing is I don't need to use my smart shunt, which is over there on the left, because this has a BMS inside that has Bluetooth connectivity. So we're going to launch an app called LiFePO4. And you can see it's LiFePO4 Fish for some reason, but it's going to connect to this battery. We got 13.5 volts. It is fully charged up, as you can see. We're going to kick on the AC inverter here, and we're going to monitor the power draw And you can see we're pulling 1.5 amps right now. So I'm going to go ahead and kick on a heater that I have. And we're going to dial that up and see how many amps we can pull out of this thing. So we're already at 101 amps. Looks like 101 amps is all we're going to get. So maybe I should hook up another heater. Well, we are already at 57% load. Heater number 1 on, pulling 102 amps. Let's put this one on low and see what that does. 81% load, 152 amps. Now the inverter will alarm at us if the battery cuts off or if the inverter exceeds its own parameters or its own limits. So we're still at 81%. Okay, so that is the battery. So the BMS cut us off. So discharge, actually you can see right here, the discharge MOSFET circuit here is showing off, and warnings, discharge over current protection. So this did shut us off after a very short period of time, pulling that high amperage. So the BMS will definitely protect this battery if you get much over 100 amps of continuous discharge. All right, I did want to point out that it did reset itself automatically. So it cleared the warning, and it does now show that the discharge MOS is on. So if I turn the AC inverter on, it should come back on. And it does. So it only took about 2 or 3 minutes max to reset. So we are back in business. All right, so as you saw, we were able to confirm that it does do 100 amps continuous, no problem, and that it will actually let you run it a little above 100 amps, actually up to about 120 amps, as I discovered, without really giving you a problem. But if you do run it over that, as you saw in the test, I ran it up to about 152 amps, and then in that case, it cut me off after around 15 seconds or so of runtime. The BMS tripped the overcurrent protection and stopped the discharge. And then also, as you saw, it did auto-recover in just 2 or 3 minutes, so it's really good that it auto-recovers in such a short period of time. Now, as I mentioned, one of the differentiating features of this battery, and one of the reasons why you will pay more for it, is for that low temperature protection. And we're going to find out how that works, so let's take a look at that. All right, let's check the low temperature protection on this battery. I'm going to go ahead and put it in this freezer, and I do have my Victron Smart Shunt attached on that just in case I don't get the information I need out of the BMS. But let's take a look at the app right now. I'll pop that up on the screen, and note that we can see the temperature of each of the 4 cells in there. They're all around 66, 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and you can see that there are no warnings, and we are currently at about a 50% state of charge. So this is perfect. I'm going to let this run, and then we'll check back and we'll see if this BMS data looks any different when the battery's frozen, and then what happens if we try to apply a charge while the battery is frozen. So we'll check back after this thing is an ice cube. Alright, so I've just taken this battery out of the freezer. You can see the condensation building up on it, and if we pull up the LiFePO4 app, we can see here on there that the current temperature of the cells is around 5 degrees or 6.8 degrees on some of the other ones. But we also have charge temp protection, low temp protection that has been enabled. So that has come on, and if I now try to apply a charge, the charger is not able to begin charging. So you can see there the charge MOS up there on the app is off, while the discharge MOS is on. And that is because you can discharge this battery down to about -4 and 5 degrees Fahrenheit, but you can't charge it below 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So hopefully what will happen, and we'll see this in the Victron Smart Shunt app, we'll see when it begins to charge. We'll find out how long it takes for this thing to thoroughly warm up in about 65 degrees ambient temperature here and start to charge. But so far it looks like the low temp charging protection is definitely working. Alright, as you can hear, we are now charging the battery. We actually have been for a little while. If we take a look at the Victron app here, you can see right here on the bottom line, when it jumps up, that is when I first connected the charger, and that was just before 5 o'clock. Right, and then this thing began charging right here just a little over 3 hours later. So it took this battery from being basically 5 or 6 degrees Fahrenheit internally to warm up enough to start charging up just a little over 3 hours. Call it maybe 3 hours and 15 minutes. And we can see the app here on the Roy Power app. We are now at 72%. And obviously both the charge and discharge MOSs are activated. And if you look at the cell temperatures, we are now in the mid 50s. So clearly the low temp cutoff protection on this PowerUrus battery is working as advertised. So thumbs up. Hey, if you're finding any of this information useful, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up on the video. It really does help. Back to the review. All right, so as you saw, we definitely confirmed that low temp protection works as advertised, which is excellent. Now, I don't think I mentioned it previously, but the BMS does support up to 4 of these batteries in series, or 4 of them in parallel. All right, to wrap up the pros and cons and my final impressions on this battery, let's talk about the cons. I mean, it's kind of no frills. It doesn't come with, the battery terminal protectors, which is not a big deal. There's just plastic caps. It doesn't come with extra studs. Again, not a big deal. You can always buy these M8 studs anywhere. And then the manual is also not a particular strong point for this battery. It's just very bare bones. It's a little bit hard to read because they combine the multiple languages on each page rather than kind of compartmentalizing each language into its own kind of section. But, I guess in fairness, there's just not a ton of information that you need out of a manual like this for a product like this. So it's not really a big deal, just something to be aware of. Now, in terms of the pros, I did mention that this thing is about $400. And by the way, there is a discount code that they gave me if you want to check that out in the description. That'll knock some money off of that, which makes it a pretty decent price when you consider that it does have low temp cutoff or low temperature protection for this battery and built-in Bluetooth connectivity with the app. So I did find the app to be, no frills, but it does give you all the information that you want. And it's really nice to be able to see the individual cell temperature as well, and to see if there are any faults and see that right in the app. It's super handy. Now, as part of the testing, I didn't do a teardown on this battery. I'll leave others to do stuff like that. But I did do a little research on it to confirm that PowerUrus is actually using high quality components and what appears to be grade A prismatic cells in this particular battery. So that's a bonus. So I do think this PowerUrus battery is a solid performer and definitely worth a look, especially if you need low temp protection at a reasonable price. And then you've got the bonus of having the ability to connect via Bluetooth to the BMS and monitor the battery in real time. So anyway, I hope you found some of this information useful. If you did, please consider giving me a thumbs up on the video. I'd really appreciate that. More similar content coming, more power stations, more solar panels, even an e-bike video. That may or may not be your speed, but hang in there. I'm kind of mixing it up. Anyway, thanks for sticking with me to the end on this video. I do hope to see you in the next one. And until then, have fun out there.